Please welcome Klaus Moberg, Jan Miller, Ty Bowie, and Sitsi Kolawole.
All right, guys, quick selfie.
Quick selfie. Wait, come on.
All right. Hey, everyone, thank you. It's great to see everybody. I'm Klaus Moberg. I'm a vice president of engineering for the user group.
I'm Jan Miller. I'm engineering manager on interactivity in the engine team.
My name is Ty Bowie. I'm a senior director of product in the user group. I have not thrown up on stage yet.
Hi, I'm Sitsi Kolawole, and I lead design on user group.
Okay, awesome. And today, we bring you everything, every platform, all at once. A metaverse, multiverse story. Okay, so I want to introduce Laundromat Studios. They're a great Roblox experience. They've been building on the platform for a while with their game, Tax Audit Defense Simulator. It's an amazing, immersive, ultra-nerdy first-person shooter where tax auditors fly at you from a sea of nondescript office buildings with poison-tipped calculators, and you and your friends fend them off with shoulder-mounted, laser-targeted receipt launchers. It's awesome. It's going to be so cool. Like many developers, they've built their experience starting on mobile because it's like the most constrained, small little screen. It was hard. And desktop because they have tons of players and revenue. And they've been really successful. They look around the Roblox ecosystem, they say, hey, we want to grow. We want to get bigger. And they were at Dave's keynote yesterday, and they know we're going to PlayStation. They know we're going to MetaQuest. They're like, are these platforms right for us? Well, when they look at consoles, they already know it's 200 million console units have been sold for the last 2 generations of PlayStation and Xbox around the world. That's huge. They also know that consoles are some of the most advanced consumer graphics hardware out there, and they're going to make their experience look amazing. And with all those players sit down for longer, more dedicated sessions, which means longer play times and more engagement. We know because Roblox users on Xbox spend 18% more time on the platform per day than Roblox's Android users. That higher engagement translates to more Robux spend. Roblox spend per user on Xbox is 2.4 times higher than on mobile. So, okay, consoles have older users who spend, on average, more time and more money on Roblox experiences than your generic user of our other platforms. If I'm Laundromat Studios, clearly I want these players to deeply engage with Tax Audit Defense Simulator. But what about VR? Should they take the time and effort necessary to make their game awesome on the MetaQuest?
Yes.
Talk's over, we can go home. Okay, so MetaQuest doesn't have the massive user base and spend of consoles, but there's still a bunch of really compelling reasons to do this. VR is the most immersive way for your users to enjoy your experience. Do you want your users to be terrified by the monster hanging out behind the door? Do you want them to feel the excitement of taking part in that raid with their friends? VR is the way to do it, right? It's also truly social. Roblox on MetaQuest has massive cross-platform adaptation. When they join a server in their MetaQuest, they are immediately immersed in a server with friends and players from all of our other platforms. They can co-play with their friends regardless of whether their friend has a MetaQuest headset, and this is a huge differentiator relative to most of the other VR-specific social platforms that exist today. You're going to be in a full server, and you're going to be interacting with tons of people, regardless of what hardware those other people have. And you know what? Showing off your skills makes you, as the developer, or Laundromat Studios in this case, way more attractive for partners. Innovative brands look for innovative developers, and building in VR and building great experiences in VR shows how innovative and high quality your game is.
Thanks, Klaus. So Laundromat Studios is convinced. They want to grow their business. They want to grow their title. They want to grow their brand. And they know that they need to bring Tax Audit Defense Simulator to console and VR. I'm super nerdy. I would totally play this game. I actually enjoy doing my taxes. They don't know how they're going to do it, but they know they will do it. So they're going to jump right in. So what do? They launch Roblox Studio. When suddenly, crack! Visually stunning, but somehow impressively cheap special effects surround them. They get a little disoriented, a little lightheaded. They stumble around, a little heartburn or something. I don't know. They start snapping back and forth between the two universes in this multiverse. You have Universe 1 over there, where they build for one platform at a time. Makes sense. And then there's Universe 2, where they build for everything, every platform all at once. So we're going to take you on a journey between these two universes. Starting with Universe 1. They know they want to grow onto new platforms, so they do something that roughly makes sense. It kind of follows what they've done already. They are going to migrate their existing mobile and desktop apps over to console and VR. Unfortunately, this means they fall into a trap of a few assumptions that they've made. So mobile, as you know, typically means touch. Not always, but typically. Desktop usually means mouse and keyboard navigation. Again, not always, but usually. And so they've designed their experience like this. Lots of little buttons all over the place. Because it's easy for a user with a mouse to move their mouse, click, move their finger, tap. Super easy. That's how they've designed it. Console, however, as you know very well, I'm sure, means something else. It usually means controller. Again, not always, but usually means controller. So they can't just keep this UI. Right? They could just add controller navigation support, but they need to do more. They should redesign their UI to be comfortable for controller navigation. Snap over to the other side. Universe 2, designing for controllers. They know they need to do this. So they know it's completely different, right? So it's not a bunch of little icons around that they have to tap. Users on controllers expect a few things. So consider this. Imagine trying to navigate your entire interface with 4 buttons, up, down, left, right, and then 2, select, and back. It's just 6 buttons total. Can you do it? As you're designing your UI, ask yourself this question. How many moves is the user going to have to take to find the play button? How many moves is the user going to have to take to get them to do the action I want them to do? Right? This is not something you think about with mouse and keyboard, or with finger and tap. Right? You're just like, the button's right there. It's no big deal. It's different with a controller. And if you design your UI this way, you'll simplify the UI for all platforms. Right? Remember, you're not trying to design just for controller. You're not trying to design just for mouse. You're trying to design for something that works across all these inputs. And if you do it in this way, you will simplify your design. Your game will look better, I guarantee you. And it'll be easier for your user to understand and figure out what's going on. Remember, controllers are not just for consoles. They're controllers for VR. I know that you have controllers in that box right there. And people can attach controllers to PCs, of course, and can attach controllers to mobile devices as well. So it's good for all platforms. Another thing, you guys probably know this already as well, but it's just a good thing to remind you. Controllers also usually mean haptic feedback, the vibrations in your controller. We've had this actual support for years, 7 years at least, right, of haptic support.
So Dave didn't know it in the Q&A. That's okay.
Sorry?
Dave didn't know we had it in the Q&A
Dave didn't know that.
but we do. We
Okay.
have haptic support on all platforms that support it.
Yeah. This is just us reminding you and encouraging you to add this extra layer of immersion to your game. You can have them physically feel the action, and especially now that you can develop for VR, that extra immersion is even that much more important in VR. There are a lot of examples to do this. So physically feeling the action is your user falls off a cliff and like a splat on the ground, right? That's a super easy way to do it. Very obvious, super cool. You can get the user's attention. For instance, a new customer has walked into their pizza restaurant and they aren't paying attention. Hey, new customer, get your attention, go serve the new customer. Or you can notify users of UI actions. For instance, they've hit a disabled button or they've scrolled to the bottom of a list. Good way to get their attention. Get creative. It's your experience. You guys know, obviously. You guys know best. A few tips, though, general tips. One, don't overdo it. I'm sure you guys have played games where it's like everything is vibrating all the time. It can actually get annoying after a while, so don't overdo it. It's easy not to get excited because it's super easy to do. You kind of throw it everywhere. Another thing, you can actually design your vibrations. So different vibrations can mean different things. Our API allows you to control the individual motors in the controller or in the haptic device individually. So you can set the intensity and duration of the vibration independently. So you can design whatever you want. Last thing, use it consistently. So let's say you're creating a few different vibrations for different things. It can confuse the user if you do a vibration for something positive, like an avatar leveling up, and also something negative, like an avatar dying. That can actually cause confusion for the user, and they don't know why it's vibrating. So think about that. So like I said, we've had this support actually for years. Just look for haptic service in the dev documentation. Tons of great examples, sample code, drop it in, and design your game. One more thing about designing for controllers. If you guys have been playing your games in the demo booth, I've been giving demos to probably some of you guys here. A lot of you have put Xbox-specific icons in your game, because we've only supported Xbox for so long, right? So you put Xbox-specific icons to educate your users on what buttons do. So we're obviously expanding to new platforms, obviously PlayStation, maybe others in the future. So we're creating a new API, which is launching in the next couple weeks probably, that allows you to show the correct icon for the correct controller. So we are providing default assets to show you the shapes or the letters as necessary. But if you don't like those default assets, you can actually customize it and design your own assets to fit the look and feel of your experience. We are also working on a no-code solution. I don't think we have a date for that, but it's something to make it even easier for you to show the correct icons at the correct time. Yep.
Thanks, Ty. All right, so we are back on Universe 1. So Universe 1 is where Laundromat Studios is building per platform, designing the UI custom bespoke. And they know that their game looks good on mobile and desktop, so they've sized up their UI, their buttons, their selectors, as well as their UI elements. And they're actually switching between UI versions using fixed sizing, static pixels, and input methods such as touch-enabled. They're switching between mobile and PC, right, using input methods. So they're focusing on touch for mobile, and they're doing keyboard and mouse for PC. However, they obviously realize that their UI is rendering too small on console. It's very difficult to read, and it's not optimized for the living room. And so they need to reconsider how they're resizing for console. There's just so many complex changes that they need to take into account. And then on top of that, with gamepads, there's also a lot of complexity in terms of how gamepads are rendering as they input into the actual devices. Okay, so flash over to Universe 2, where Laundromat Studios is actually building universally and adaptively, scaling their UI across all the different platforms. They know that the real estate and distance is going to be really key and important in how they're building and sizing their UI. And so they recognize and understand the ergonomics of it all. So users sit 10 feet away from the screen relative to a console. So they want their UI to be comfortable, easy to navigate. They want their fonts to be very legible. And in order to scale their UI comfortably, they need to take into account the scale factor of 1.5x, right? So that's kind of like the optimal way you want to scale your UI for 10 feet. For VR, there's also the consideration of making sure that Laundromat Studios needs to ensure that they're actually reducing the complexity of their UI, so taking away unnecessary elements and just focusing in on the key elements that are needed. Okay, so how are they actually going to accomplish this? So in Universe 2, Laundromat knows that we're all about allowing you to build and scale your UI adaptively, and that's our mission. And so they are able to implement their UI using relative size and relative position. So everything is implemented as a percentage of the frame. And so they're able to use features like UI size constraints to be able to scale the UI dynamically. And they can implement scrolling frames to make sure that they actually reduce the clutter on the screen. The output method that they focus on is using is10-foot interface and VR enabled. That's the optimal way to do it. And they also make sure that they're actually using output characteristics to switch between the UI settings. Now, the key thing here in Universe 2 is to make sure that there's no mixing of the input and output methodologies in order to make sure that the switches are done correctly. Over to you, Jan.
All right, let's talk about VR. So Laundromat Studios consider something I'm really excited about, bringing their tax audit defense simulator to VR. And they've always targeted high-end devices, PCs, phones that have latest hardware. And they're trying to bring this on the Quest 2. And soon in Universe number 1, they realized there's performance issues. There's stuttering, the users start complaining about discomfort. So what happened and what can we do about it? Well, in Universe number 2, Laundromat Studios know that performance and comfort are the most important aspects of VR. You have to hit at least 72 FPS to have a stable frame rate to not get people sick. It's right in front of your eyes. Even small dips and inconsistencies, you feel them. You feel the movement becoming sluggish. And once people get sick, they will not come back to your experience. It's really important to focus on that. So what can we do? Well, there's a bunch of things our engine does already for you. Application Space Warp, we implemented frame generation, meaning we effectively double your frame rate by extrapolating frames from motion buffers. And the Auto Frame Rate Manager. The Auto Frame Rate Manager is the thing that makes your game look worse. And I know that's like, why would you want that? But it does everything it can in the auto setting to keep your frame rate stable above 72 FPS. We target around 76 to 80 frames per second. But Laundromat Studios in Universe number 2, they know there's a ton of things they can do themselves that not only benefit VR, but all lower-end devices. You can look at the physics debugger. We just released a new visual physics debugger that lets you see physical objects in your scene that are very costly, like stuck under some geometry, for example. You can enable streaming to remove amounts of objects in the distance. And you can, of course, look at your scripts. You can see on the Quest device directly whether you're CPU or GPU bound. So if you're CPU bound, most likely some script is shooting too many raycasts or just doing too many computations. And then something that's specific to the renderer on Quest or on mobile VR in general, they are very sensitive to any kind of overdraw and high draw calls, which makes sense. You have two screens, basically two views that you render at the same time on a mobile chip. So if you have a lot of decals, a lot of transparent textures, transparent parts, please try to remove those in VR. So moving on, Laundromat Studios in Universe number 2, they also know the importance of our player script. We just launched the Quest beta with over 50,000 of your experiences working without any coding necessary. And that was only possible because we continuously improve those scripts and adopt them to new platforms like the Meta Quest. We're adding new cameras, new comfort options, and like this is one example, the step rotation, which removes continuous motion for people that are motion sensitive. Another example is our vignette in our Blink. Similarly, they remove the motion at the peripheral vision. So when you move through the world, you can imagine that what's on the outside of your vision has the most motion, but it's also the least important, really, to experience the world. So reducing the field of view helps people with motion sickness. Hiding teleports helps people with motion sickness. All of these options so far were kind of just, you can set them in the menu and they're just there. But we are gonna ship a new comfort settings menu with the next build for Quest and for PCVR as well. It's gonna have a custom setting like it was before, where all the settings and all the new settings go and you can individually change them. But it also comes with 3 presets, with comfort, default, and expert. And basically, the question of which settings are right for you should go mostly away. If you're a beginner, comfort is the ideal, removes the most motion. For most people, the default will be enough. And the expert mode removes all the helpers and will just let you experience the whole motion in the experience. So Laundromat Studios know the most important part of all of this, of the player scripts and of these comfort settings, are the cameras. We shipped with 2 cameras, the beta of Quest 2. With the fixed third-person camera, which the idea there is that we remove as much motion as possible. The camera teleports to the target position. And so people that are very motion sensitive, they don't get sick because they're following around the character. And then the first-person mode, which is more immersive and lets you experience the world out of the avatar's eyes. But we also realized that a lot of our users are more experienced than we actually thought. So starting with the next build, we're going to launch a default follow camera that has full control, moves with the avatar. You can rotate the camera around your avatar. And people actually sitting in this room are currently working on a new feature that we're going to launch soon that will always keep the avatar in front of you. So even if you turn around in VR and you walk the other way, your avatar will automatically come back into view. Very excited to ship that soon with the next build on Quest. As a reminder, if you do your own camera, that's cool. If you want to do your own VR camera because you have a specific gameplay experience, that's cool. But we're doing all this work so you don't have to. Even if you do your own systems, every once in a while, get the latest scripts, get the latest comfort options, and integrate them, please. Thanks.
All right. So clearly, Universe 2, they did it, right? Laundromat Studios designed, built, and launched Tax Audit Defense Simulator for everything, every platform, all at once. They are now one of the most popular and highest earning titles on consoles, and H&R Blocks has reached out about co-branding. But there was an unanticipated side effect of doing all this the right way, right? Their experience is actually better on all Roblox platforms. They have haptics on mobile. They have gamepad support on PC and mobile. Their performance has increased on all platforms. Their UI is more beautiful and easier to navigate. And perhaps most importantly, their code base is future-proofed in case Roblox announces new platforms in the future. Right?
Right, Dave?
So they created an experience that their users can play on whatever device they want. They've saved the multiverse from annihilation. And somehow they repaired their relationship with their daughter at the same time that I mentioned that they were having difficulty communicating with the high school. Anyway, whatever. OK, so what do you do next? Just behind us, we have booths where you can test your experience on PlayStation, Xbox, and in VR on a MetaQuest Pro device. Check out the docs. Everything we mentioned in this talk is really well documented in the developer docs, and work on your experience. MetaQuest beta is out now, and we'll be launching officially in the MetaQuest store, so all of our users can find it really easily this month. PlayStation will be launching to the public next month. You want to be ready, you want to be there for it.
If your experience is published on Xbox, it will be automatically published on PlayStation.
It will
just
automatically
go work on
publish
Xbox right now.
That's right. And finally, I mean, one more thing. I think you all know this, but our friends at Meta are giving all of you free MetaQuest Pro headsets. So if you haven't picked that up yet, this just goes to show how much importance they are placing on getting all of you to build for VR. Is truly awesome, and we hope that you guys use those to just build incredible experiences that work amazingly on all platforms and offer incredible experiences to all users. So with that, we have, I think, about 11 minutes to take questions. And there's microphones at the front of both aisles. So.
Hello,
Hey.
my name is Sigmatech. I work for Sawhorse Interactive. And so the first thing that, we got those Quest Pros, I mean, amazing. So like I'm thinking about development, right? And I'm thinking about like rapidly prototyping. Like oftentimes I test something, I'm testing it like minute by minute. And to think about, like having to publish the experience to Roblox to test it on the headset seems like it's gonna be like really hard, especially if the game is live. I'm wondering if like, we're thinking about perhaps like, making some sort of like studio integration where we could like do it on the local network so that, we can have that wireless experience instead of like maybe, plugging in a USB-C. I'm wondering if that's, being thought of.
On studio side?
On the studio side, I don't know the answer to that, but it's an awesome idea.
Yeah,
I'll make sure Nick and Tian hear the feedback. I believe today, if you use PC VR, like a tethered headset, which Meta didn't provide, you could do that. But finding a way to make that iteration loop super rapid between studio and like standalone headsets is an awesome idea, and we'll make sure studio gets that feedback.
Yeah, I think it's a really good idea to have hot deploy to Quest, and we have been thinking about it internally. In the meantime, you can like profile on a mobile chipset, and it's like if you get like a Galaxy S20-ish chipset, it's very similar performance.
Yeah, the Quest 2, so you guys have Quest Pros, which are higher end, right? But the Quest 2 is the one that's been sold a lot of. So if you want to hit a lot of users, you Quest 2. And that's, like you said, like a mid-range Android is roughly that what you're targeting for performance.
Cool. All right, can I answer a second?
Go for it.
Is haptic service going to be on mobile as well? Can we?
It is.
Oh,
We
okay.
Already
launched
is
it.
today.
Okay.
I know we didn't do a lot of fanfare, but yeah, we launched haptic servers as it is on mobile. So if you use the gamepad haptic servers, it actually works on Android and iOS now. And we're working on a better version that has like more control over the effects, but it works right now.
Cool. Can I slip in a third question? Is it possible to access maybe the pixel pitch, like so we can determine if an experience is like on a 10-foot screen or like a super like an 8K screen versus like maybe like a like resolution alone doesn't tell us enough about what we're looking at. So maybe like the distance between the pixels on the device.
So really, I think what we're talking about here is pixel density versus virtual pixels.
Yeah.
I do think we have some work to do to refine that. Like, again, we don't want people forking your code bases to say like, if I am guessing this is on mobile, do an entirely different thing on this version than
Math,
Right, exactly. But like, based on the actual real world pixel density versus the real world device size, that's what you should actually be building for. And I think it's a
Like, what's the pixel density on a VR headset, right? Like, it's difficult to argue around that. Input capabilities is much more what we're focusing on.
The strategy of what you're saying is absolutely what we want to do. We haven't figured out the details.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. That's all I had.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Should we switch to that side?
Let's go over here.
Hello, I'm Roger, and I'm also working at Sohorse. So considering we're getting Roblox in PlayStation, is there any plans to maybe bring PlayStation VR into Roblox?
So that's a great question. Initially, the binary that we're shipping on PlayStation is a PlayStation 4 binary, not a PlayStation 5 binary, which is required to support PSVR 2. So when we update that binary to be a PS5 native binary, we then have the option of adding PSVR support. It's not officially on the roadmap yet, but we're heavily considering it. It's just, we were looking at all of the various platform expansion directions we can go, and we just have to figure out which one's the right next option.
Thank you.
Hello, so my question is, how will the enumeration names for the key codes for PlayStation work? Because right now, we have button A, B, X, Y, but we have an X on PlayStation, but it doesn't map the same, so how's that going to work?
So the way it works right now is that it actually does map. So we basically virtually map your Xbox buttons to the PlayStation icons. We're also going to, of course, support native key codes for PlayStation, and then as we expand that API for different platforms.
And those will kind of go like back and forth. Like if I were to code in the PlayStation enums, it would also be the Xbox ones as well?
Correct. It automatically maps. So basically, you just write one line of code, like get keypad, like, get the icon for this key code, and you get the right one for platform.
Awesome. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Jasper. I work at Lightning Splash. I'm wondering if there's any plans to implement a sort of pinch emulator for mobile.
In Studio?
Interesting.
It's a great idea.
Emulation team. Is anybody?
Yeah, we'll make sure that gets documented and brought to Studio, but absolutely, we should have that.
Sweet, thank you, that's all I had.
Can I call it Brad to write that down? There was that one. There was a previous one, which was the VR in Studio emulation.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Riker. I couldn't help but notice that it said that like VR would run at 72 FPS, and I just wanted to make sure is it basically becoming standard to make your game like non-FPS independent and stuff, so that it doesn't break if anyone plays in VR and stuff?
That should always
because it's
be
not
true.
capped at 60.
That should always be true.
Oh, I know, but
yeah, it's not even kept at 60 on Android either. So in general, don't make it frame rate dependent. Always do a DT times DT or something in your code.
I just want to make sure.
Effectively, we're running around 38 frames per second. That's what we're targeting, and then we're doubling that. So it ends up at like 76. And if it dips below that, we're starting to remove assets from your scene to make it run faster.
Yeah, cool.
Do we over here?
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Tiger Captain, and I have a question concerning determining the difference between using an Xbox and a PlayStation, because we use a lot of custom icons for stylized forms in our game. And I know that you allowed the difference for the functionality between using, say, an X button and, say, a square button, or whatever it maps to. But if we're using custom icons, we have to swap them all out. Is there like a user input service or a get platform for like, we have is 10-foot device, so it's PlayStation, right? Like, what would that map to?
Right. So the way it's supposed to work, and I think the API for that, the documentation is coming out this week, is that you can write your own mapping. You can have a table of buttons, and then you can get the platform-dependent key code and like map to them if you want to do that. So you can create your table with all the different icons you want and say, well, it's the PlayStation triangle button is this texture. We are going to give an example for that.
So can I add though? Philosophically, we would rather you not know branch
Platform
depending on Xbox or
Yes.
PlayStation because there is a third console, fourth console, fifth console, and we want you to be able to not worry about that and publish on every console that we end up supporting.
Yes. Please keep in mind that your PlayStation controller can be connected to an iOS device or a PC, or like you can even connect an Xbox controller to your Quest 2, and it works.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Blackout Dev. I work with Neuro Studios. So mine kind of follows what you just said. Will you be able to identify what controller someone is using if it's on PC? So like if I'm using a PlayStation controller or an Xbox controller, we'll be able to identify which one of those it is?
Yes, that feature isn't ready yet, but we're working on it right now.
Okay.
That you can get it's basically how it will work is that you are trying to get the key code, and it will say, well, this one doesn't exist. The other one exists, and you know which controller it is, basically.
Okay, add a quick follow-up one. Are you guys planning on ever pushing frame generation to other platforms as well, or just keeping it with VR?
Application Spacewap is specific to Quest. I don't know whether we want to do this on other platforms, something like this.
I think we would certainly ship it on any head-mounted display that we support. Remember, like, it's just an interpolated frame, so it's not true 76 FPS. I think as a platform, we would love to get the game engine to the point where it's supporting safely higher than 30 FPS or whatever we're rendering at on other platforms. But like we'd like to do it the real way, where like the actual frame rate is there. So that's the long-term vision. In the meantime, we're doing frame warp on head-mounted displays.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
All right, so this might be a little bit of a silly question because people can go out and buy like poor hardware to benchmark on, but I was wondering if Roblox had any plans to essentially like for the emulator, if they had plans to like attempt to mimic a device's hardware restraints.
That is another fantastic suggestion for the emulator, and we'll take that back to the creator team. But I think 100% we should be able to enable you to do testing within emulation of a wide range of hardware input and output modalities, as well as hardware capabilities. So it's an awesome idea.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Luca. This might be a bit of a simple question, but I know you mentioned that Xbox-compatible games are being published automatically onto PS5. But I know that when we published it initially on Xbox, we had to agree to some moderation differences, such as I have a custom Xbox wheel chat for my game. Is there any moderation differences that we need to worry about when it's automatically being published to PS5?
No, in fact, I don't know if we've announced this, but that checkbox with the moderation differences, I believe, has already disappeared.
Yeah, it's gone already.
So those requirements no longer exist, and all Roblox content is now appropriate on all of our console platforms, and will be appropriate on the console platforms we're launching in the near future.
Yeah, if people aren't exactly aware of what we're talking about, there used to be a series of things you need to agree to. Like there's no gore, there's this, that, there are a few different things.
No blood.
That is, we've talked to Xbox, we've talked to PlayStation. That is no longer a requirement across the board.
Thank you.
It's a great question.
Hi, I'm Camille Robocambot in Roblox. I had a question about the frame rate and how it gets adjusted. Does that apply to animations you bring in from Blender, like for NPCs? Do those get adjusted to if I imported like a 30 FPS animation?
It doesn't adjust the animation playback. It only adjusts, like, it reduces the quality of your scene to heighten the frame rate if you like drop below 72 FPS. But it doesn't, like, basically internally you would run at that point around 30 FPS, and then we start to remove objects from the scene, but the animations don't get affected. We don't do like animations and rate scaling or anything like that.
But frame warp would effectively space warp, would effectively double the frame rate still, because it's at the frame buffer level, not.
It would if it like correctly guesses how the animation interpolates, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Would you recommend to like adjust my animations from Blender, like give it 70 or 72 FPS when I'm importing them?
I would not recommend that, no. Just keep working the way you work right now, the way you're used to.
Oh, okay.
Hey, so we're out of time. Those are the questions. We can meet you outside. We're happy to do so if you'd like.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.